Commander Zirek stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Sovereign Dawn, and stared at the view screen. Before him stretched the Dead Zone, a region of space that had swallowed ships for 300 years. No one knew what lay inside. No ship had ever returned to tell the story. The Vakari Dominion needed answers. Trade routes went around this vast emptiness, adding weeks to journeys. Exploration vessels disappeared without a trace. Even long-range probes went silent the moment they crossed the boundary. Some said it was a black hole cluster. Others whispered about ancient weapons left by extinct races. The High Council decided it was time to know the truth. Zirek commanded 12 warships, each one a masterpiece of Vakari engineering. His crew consisted of 5,000 warriors, scientists, and explorers. They carried enough firepower to conquer a small star system. The Dominion had given him the best of everything because this mission could not fail. "All ships report ready, Commander," his second officer announced. Her scales glinted blue under the bridge lights, a sign of her nervousness. Zirek understood. Every member of his crew knew the statistics. 47 expeditions had entered the Dead Zone over 3 centuries. None returned. "Take us in," Zirek ordered. Standard formation. Sensors at maximum range. The fleet crossed the boundary together. Zirek watched his instruments carefully, waiting for something to happen. For several minutes, nothing did. Space looked the same on this side as it did outside. Stars dotted the darkness. His sensors showed normal readings, then the debris fields appeared. "Commander, I'm detecting wreckage," the sensor operator called out. "Multiple signatures. They're scattered across this entire sector." Zirek leaned forward. On his screen, hundreds of red dots appeared, each one marking destroyed ships or stations. Some of the signatures matched vessels that disappeared decades ago. Others looked even older. "Analysis," Zirek demanded. "The destruction patterns are consistent with weapons fire," the tactical officer reported. "High-energy plasma burns, kinetic impacts, radiation scarring. These ships were destroyed in combat, sir." Combat. That meant intelligence. That meant someone lived here, someone who killed every visitor. Zirek felt his blood run cold. The Dominion thought they might find a natural phenomenon or ancient ruins. Instead, they found evidence of an active hostile force. "Continue scanning. I want to know what we're facing." Over the next 2 hours, the fleet moved deeper into the zone. They found more debris, abandoned stations, and mines that had gone dark centuries ago. But they also found something unexpected. Active energy signatures. "Sir, I'm reading power generation," the sensor operator said, her voice rising with excitement. "Artificial gravity wells. Communication networks. There are inhabited worlds here." Zirek studied the data. The readings showed extensive infrastructure, stations, satellites, and planetary settlements. This wasn't a dead zone at all. It was occupied territory. Someone lived here, thrived here, and killed anyone who stumbled into their space. "Can you identify the species?" Zirek asked. "Negative, sir. The technology doesn't match any known civilization in the database. The power signatures are unusual. High efficiency, compact design. Whoever built this is advanced. Advanced enough to remain hidden from the 3 galactic powers for centuries. Advanced enough to destroy every ship that found them." Zirek felt a mix of curiosity and concern. He needed more information. "There," the tactical officer said, pointing at the screen. "Small installation on that asteroid. It appears to be a mining operation. Minimal defenses visible." Zirek examined the target. The station looked simple, almost primitive. A few structures, some equipment, a small fusion reactor. It seemed harmless. Perhaps they could capture it and learn about these mysterious inhabitants. Move the fleet toward the station. Prepare scanning teams. Every screen on the bridge went dark. Then they flickered back to life, showing a single message in perfect Vakari script. "Turn back. This is your only warning." Silence filled the bridge. Zirek stared at the message. Someone had penetrated their communication systems in seconds, bypassed their security, and delivered a threat. That level of technology far exceeded what the station's appearance suggested. "How did they do that?" Zirek asked. "I don't know, sir," his communications officer admitted. "Our systems are supposed to be impenetrable. They shouldn't even be able to detect our frequency, let alone hack our displays." "Trace the signal source." "It came from the station, sir. That little mining outpost just broke through our best encryption like it wasn't even there." Zirek considered his options. The smart choice would be to retreat, report these findings, and let the Dominion send a larger force. But his orders were clear: investigate and return with answers. One small station shouldn't pose a real threat to 12 warships. They're trying to scare us, Zirek said. Probably hoping we'll run away like the others. We won't. Move 3 cruisers into position around the station. Demand their surrender. If they refuse, disable their communications and prepare boarding teams. His second officer looked uncertain. Sir, perhaps we should exercise caution. This warning could be serious. Noted, Zirek replied. But we didn't come all this way to turn back at the first sign of resistance. These people, whoever they are, have been hiding in our galaxy. They've killed our explorers. It's time they answered for those crimes. Proceed with the operation. The 3 Vakari cruisers moved toward the asteroid, their weapons charging. The mining station sat silent, waiting. No more messages came through. No defenses activated. Zirek watched and wondered what he was really facing. In a few minutes, he would have his answer. He had no idea that those would be the last peaceful minutes his fleet would ever know. The first Vakari cruiser moved within weapons range of the mining station. Commander Zirek watched from his flagship, confident that this small outpost would surrender once they saw his firepower. The cruiser's commander opened a channel and broadcast a demand for immediate compliance. The response came in the form of violence. The asteroid exploded with light, not from conventional weapons or plasma cannons, but from kinetic accelerators that fired solid projectiles at a fraction of light speed. The rounds hit the Vakari cruiser before its shields could fully engage. Metal tore like paper. The ship's hull buckled and split. Atmosphere vented into space in brilliant streams of frozen air. Evasive maneuvers. Someone shouted on the bridge, but it was too late for the cruiser. A second volley struck its reactor core. The ship died in a flash of nuclear fire. Zirek stared in shock. 500 crew members gone in less than 10 seconds. The small mining station that looked so primitive had just destroyed a Vakari warship with contemptuous ease. All ships, return fire, Zirek commanded. Destroy that station! The remaining 11 warships opened up with everything they had. Plasma batteries lit up the void. Missiles streaked toward the asteroid. Energy beams capable of melting mountains focused on the small installation. The station disappeared in a storm of fire and destruction. When the bombardment cleared, nothing remained but glowing debris. Zirek felt a moment of satisfaction mixed with his anger. They had paid a heavy price, but at least the threat was eliminated. Send boarding teams to the wreckage, Zirek ordered. I want to know what we just fought. Salvage their technology if possible. The teams went in wearing full combat armor, expecting resistance. They found none. The station was gone, reduced to rubble and molten metal. But as they searched through the ruins, they made discoveries that chilled Zirek to his core. Commander, you need to see this, the lead investigator reported. We found manufacturing facilities. This wasn't just a mining station. They were building weapons here. Lots of weapons. The images came through to Zirek's screen. Deep inside the asteroid, protected from casual scans, were factories. Assembly lines for those kinetic accelerators. Storage facilities for ammunition. The station could have armed a fleet. There's more, sir, the investigator continued. We found data cores. Encrypted beyond anything I've seen. We can't crack them, but we can read the headers. Sir, this station was one of thousands. There are star charts showing installations throughout this entire sector. We didn't find an outpost. We found one small piece of a massive defensive network. Zirek felt his confidence drain away. One station had destroyed his cruiser. If there were thousands of these installations, his fleet was in serious danger. He needed more information. Can you read anything from those data cores? Zirek asked. Some fragments, sir. Enough to get language samples. Running them through our translator now. The species calls themselves humans. This region is marked as human space on their charts. And, sir, there are records here. Records of every ship that entered this zone for the past 300 years. What happened to them? Destroyed, sir. Every single one. The humans have been watching the galactic powers for generations. They've been cataloging our ships, our weapons, our languages. They know about the Dominion. They know about the other empires. They've been studying us while staying hidden. Zirek's mind raced. A species advanced enough to hide from galactic powers for centuries. Advanced enough to build vast defensive networks. Advanced enough to destroy every expedition sent into their territory. This wasn't a primitive species to be conquered. This was a threat. Recall all boarding teams immediately, Zirek ordered. Prepare the fleet to withdraw. We need to report this to the High Council. Sir, I'm detecting new contacts, his sensor operator called out. Multiple ships appearing on sensors. They're surrounding us. Zirek looked at his tactical display. Ships were appearing from nowhere, dozens of them, forming a sphere around his fleet. They hadn't jumped in from faster-than-light travel. They had been there all along, invisible, waiting. "How long have they been there?" Zirek demanded. "Unknown, sir. Our sensors never detected them until they wanted to be seen. They have stealth technology beyond our capabilities." The human fleet held position, not attacking, but clearly ready to do so. Zirek counted 40 vessels, each one roughly the same size as his cruisers. They didn't look particularly impressive, but he had already learned not to judge these humans by appearances. A communication request came through. Zirek accepted it, and a human appeared on his screen. Female, by the look of it, wearing a simple uniform. She looked remarkably similar to Vakari in basic structure. 2 eyes, 1 mouth, but her skin was darker and she had hair instead of scales. "I am Captain Chen of the Human Defense Fleet," she said, speaking perfect Vakari. "Welcome to the graveyard, Commander Zirek." "You know my name," Zirek said carefully. "We know everything about you. Your name, your rank, your service record. We know about the Vakari Dominion, its territory, its military strength, its political structure. We've been watching your people for 140 years. We've been watching all the galactic powers. Why?" Zirek asked. "Why hide? Why kill everyone who finds you?" Captain Chen's expression hardened. "Because we learned what your empires do to newcomers. Your dominion enslaves weaker species. The other powers aren't much better. When humanity discovered faster-than-light travel, we saw a galaxy full of predators. We made a choice. We would hide, build up our strength, and make sure no alien power could ever threaten Earth. We could have been allies," Zirek said. "No," Chen replied. "We studied your history. We saw how you treat allies, how you use them until they're no longer useful, then absorb them into your empire. We decided we didn't want any part of that. So we created this dead zone. Every ship that entered was captured or destroyed. Every piece of technology was studied. Every language was learned. We built our civilization in secret behind walls you couldn't penetrate. You can't stay hidden forever," Zirek said. "We don't plan to," Chen answered. "We're strong enough now that it doesn't matter if you know we're here. Your fleet is surrounded. Your weapons are targeted. You have 2 choices, Commander. Your ships can die here, adding to the graveyard, or we let 1 vessel return home with a message." Zirek knew he had no real choice. His fleet couldn't fight 40 ships with superior technology. "What message?" "Simple," Chen said. "Stay out of human space or face extinction. This is your only warning. The next fleet that crosses our border won't get the option to retreat." Zirek swallowed his pride. "I accept. We'll leave. Your flagship may go," Chen said. "The rest stay here. And Commander, one more thing. We're installing a tracking beacon on your ship. It will let us know where the Vakari homeworld is. Consider it insurance. If you attack us, we'll know exactly where to strike back." The transmission ended. Zirek watched as human boarding teams transferred to his other ships. His crews didn't resist. They couldn't. Within an hour, only his flagship remained operational. The other 10 vessels were disabled, their crews taken prisoner. Zirek gave the order to retreat, his ship limping toward the boundary of human space. Behind him, he left 10 warships and thousands of crew members. Ahead of him lay the impossible task of explaining to the High Council that the Dominion had just discovered an enemy they might not be able to defeat. The journey back to the Vakari homeworld took 3 weeks. Commander Zirek spent every day of that journey reviewing the data his ship had collected. He studied sensor logs, analyzed the human weapons, and tried to understand what his people were facing. The more he learned, the more worried he became. The humans had built an entire civilization in secret. Their technology was different from anything in the known galaxy, not better in every way, but specialized for defense and stealth. They had learned from watching the galactic powers, taking the best ideas from each empire while avoiding their weaknesses. When Zirek's damaged flagship finally reached the Dominion capital, he was summoned immediately to the High Council. He stood in the Grand Chamber where the most powerful Vakari in the Empire made their decisions. 12 council members sat on elevated platforms looking down at him with expressions ranging from curiosity to anger. "Commander Zirek," the chief counselor began, her voice cold. "You departed with 12 warships. You return with 1 badly damaged and without most of your crew. Explain." Zirek told them everything. He described the dead zone, the hidden human civilization, the advanced technology, and the warning he had been given. He presented all the data his ship had gathered. He recommended extreme caution in dealing with this new threat. The council listened in silence. When he finished, they began asking questions. Most of those questions revealed that they didn't understand the danger. "These humans let you go," one counselor said. "That shows weakness. A strong enemy would have destroyed your entire fleet." "They let me go so I could deliver their warning," Zirek explained. "They wanted you to know they exist and that they will defend their territory. They're not weak. They're confident. Confident or arrogant?" Another counselor asked. "They hide in a corner of space while we rule star systems. They have 40 ships, maybe a few hundred. We have thousands. What makes you think they're a real threat?" Zirek felt frustration building. Because they've been preparing for this for centuries. Every ship that entered their space was destroyed. They studied our technology, learned our languages, and built defenses specifically designed to counter our tactics. This isn't a primitive species we can easily conquer. The chief counselor raised her hand for silence. "We appreciate your report, Commander. However, the council sees this situation differently. The humans attacked Dominion vessels without provocation. They destroyed 11 warships and took our crews prisoner. This is an act of war. They gave us a warning before they attacked," Zirek protested. "We ignored it." "A warning means nothing," the chief counselor replied. "They entered our territory by hiding in what should have been neutral space. They killed our explorers over centuries, and now they threaten us? No, the Dominion does not back down from threats. We will assemble a war fleet and deal with these humans decisively." Zirek couldn't believe what he was hearing. "You're planning to invade human space? After what I just told you?" "We're planning to eliminate a threat," the chief counselor corrected. "You encountered one small defensive fleet. 40 ships. We will send thousands. We will overwhelm them with pure numbers and firepower. The humans cannot possibly stand against the full might of the Dominion." "And what if you're wrong?" Zirek asked. "What if they have more ships than we saw? What if their defenses are stronger than we think? Then we will adapt," the chief counselor said dismissively. "Commander, you are relieved of duty pending an investigation into the loss of your fleet. You are not to speak publicly about this matter. The council will handle the human problem." Zirek left the chamber feeling hollow. They hadn't listened. They saw only an opportunity for conquest, a chance to seize advanced technology and eliminate a potential rival. They didn't understand that the humans weren't hiding because they were weak. They were hiding because they were dangerous. Over the next month, Zirek watched as the Dominion mobilized for war. Shipyards worked around the clock. Crews were recalled from leave. Weapons were stockpiled. The war fleet grew larger every day. But the Dominion didn't keep their plans secret. Word spread to the other galactic powers. The Kryn Empire and the Zelian Confederation both sent representatives to the Dominion capital. Zirek watched the news feeds as the three powers negotiated. The humans represented a threat to all of them, they decided. A hidden civilization with advanced technology could disrupt the balance of power. Better to eliminate the problem together. Within 2 months, the largest military fleet in galactic history began to assemble. The Dominion contributed 3,000 warships. The Kryn added 2,000. The Zelian provided another 1,000. 6,000 ships total, with crews numbering in the millions. Enough firepower to sterilize a dozen worlds. Zirek was not invited to join the fleet. He remained on the homeworld, officially under investigation but really just sidelined. The council appointed Admiral Kresh to command the operation. Kresh was famous for his aggressive tactics and his hatred of anything that challenged Dominion authority. He was exactly the wrong choice for this mission, but Zirek couldn't stop what was coming. He could only watch as the fleet prepared to depart. He spent his time reviewing the data from human space again and again, looking for something everyone else had missed. That's when he found it. Hidden in the sensor logs, buried in routine scans, was evidence that changed everything. The human installations his fleet had detected. Those thousands of defensive stations all shared a common design pattern. They were modular, scalable, and most importantly, they were automated. The humans didn't need large crews to operate their defenses. They used artificial intelligence and remote control. That meant they could build many more installations than a traditional empire could manage. The 40 ships that surrounded his fleet might have been every manned vessel the humans had. But the defensive network could include thousands or even millions of automated platforms. Zirek tried to send his findings to Admiral Kresh. The message was blocked. The Council didn't want dissenting opinions confusing their commanders. They wanted confidence and aggression, not caution and analysis. 3 months after Zirek's return, the combined fleet departed for human space. Zirek watched the news coverage as 6,000 warships jumped to faster-than-light speeds, heading for the dead zone. Reporters called it the greatest military operation in galactic history. Politicians gave speeches about unity and strength. Citizens celebrated the coming victory. Zirek felt only dread. He knew what those 6,000 ships were really flying into. Not a quick victory over a primitive species, but a trap that had been centuries in the making. The humans had been waiting for this moment, preparing for it, hoping it would never come but ready when it did. He thought about Captain Chen's words. Stay out of human space or face extinction. It hadn't been a bluff or an empty threat. It had been a simple statement of fact. The humans had built their entire civilization around one goal, making sure no alien power could ever threaten Earth. The fleet was going to learn what that meant. Zirek just hoped some of them would survive to tell the story. He pulled up the sensor data one more time, studying the patterns, trying to estimate how many defensive installations the humans might have deployed. The numbers he calculated made his blood run cold. The Dominion thought they were sending overwhelming force. Zirek feared they were sending just enough victims to show the humans what they were truly capable of. And after the humans finished with the fleet, after they demonstrated their strength, what would they do next? Captain Chen had installed a tracking beacon on his ship. The humans knew exactly where the Vakari homeworld was. They knew where all the major worlds of all 3 empires were located. If the humans decided that the galaxy's powers were too dangerous to leave alone, they had the targeting data they needed. Zirek stared at the stars and wondered if his species had just made the biggest mistake in its history. In trying to conquer a hidden enemy, they might have awakened something far worse, something that had been content to remain isolated but would fight with terrifying efficiency when threatened. The fleet wouldn't reach human space for another week. Zirek counted down the days, dreading the news that would eventually come. He had seen what one small human station could do. Soon the entire galaxy would learn what an entire human civilization was capable of when pushed to war. The combined fleet of 6,000 warships entered human space with absolute confidence. Admiral Kresh stood on the bridge of his command dreadnought, surrounded by holographic displays showing the positions of every vessel under his command. The Vakari, Kryn, and Zelian forces formed a wall of metal and firepower stretching across light years. All ships report ready, Admiral, his communications officer announced. Kresh smiled, showing his pointed teeth. Today we teach these hiding humans a lesson about challenging established powers. Begin the advance. Weapons free. Destroy anything that resists. The fleet moved forward in waves, thousands of ships jumping deeper into human territory. Their sensors swept the region, searching for targets. Within minutes, they found them. Hundreds of installations appeared on the displays, just as Commander Zirek had reported. Stations, satellites, and defensive platforms scattered throughout the sector. Target all installations, Kresh ordered. Fire at will. The fleet opened fire. Thousands of weapons lit up space. Missiles and energy beams converging on the human defenses. Kresh watched with satisfaction as the first targets exploded. This would be easy, he thought. These humans had built an impressive defensive network, but numbers would tell the story. 6,000 ships against a few hundred stations was no contest. Then the trap sprang shut. The fleet's faster-than-light drives shut down simultaneously. Every ship dropped out of FTL at the same instant, scattered across a huge volume of space. Kresh's smile vanished as warning lights flooded his displays. What happened? He demanded. Why did we stop? Unknown, sir, the navigation officer replied, panic in her voice. Something is interfering with our FTL fields. There are gravitational anomalies everywhere. We're caught in some kind of trap. Impossible. Our drives are, Admiral, detecting massive weapons fire. The tactical officer shouted. Multiple contacts. Thousands of contacts. The human response made their earlier demonstration look gentle. Defensive platforms that had seemed dormant suddenly activated. Stealth drones appeared from nowhere, swarming like insects. Railguns fired solid projectiles at impossible speeds. Missile pods that looked like asteroids opened up and unleashed their payloads. Energy weapons sliced through shields that had taken decades to develop. But the worst were the kinetic kill vehicles. Small drones accelerating to a significant fraction of light speed. each one carrying enough momentum to punch through a warship's hull like it was made of paper. They came in waves, too fast to dodge, too numerous to shoot down. Kresh watched in horror as his tactical display lit up with red markers. Ships dying. Dozens at first, then hundreds. The fleet tried to fight back, but the humans had chosen their battlefield perfectly. The gravitational anomalies prevented coordinated movement. Ships were isolated, unable to support each other, picked off one by one. "Regroup," Kresh ordered. "All ships form defensive formations. Focus fire on the nearest threats." The fleet tried to comply, but the humans had other surprises. The defensive platforms weren't stationary. They moved, repositioning constantly, never giving the fleet a stable target. And they were coordinated in a way that suggested a single controlling intelligence, striking at weak points and exploiting every mistake. Then the human warships arrived. Not 40 ships this time, but hundreds. They came from every direction, their stealth fields dropping just long enough to launch attacks before disappearing again. These weren't the same vessels that had surrounded Commander Zirek's fleet. These were dedicated warships, bigger, more heavily armed, and crewed by people who had trained for this exact scenario. The human ships used tactics the galactic powers had never encountered. They didn't form neat battle lines or follow predictable patterns. They struck like predators, hitting hard and fast, then vanishing before the return fire could connect. They targeted engines first, crippling ships so they couldn't escape. Then they methodically destroyed weapon systems, life support, anything that kept the vessel operational. "Sir, we've lost over 1,000 ships," the tactical officer reported. "Casualties are catastrophic." "How long has the battle been going?" Kresh asked. 18 minutes, sir. 18 minutes. 1,000 ships destroyed in 18 minutes. Kresh felt his confidence crumble. This wasn't a battle. It was a slaughter. The humans had been ready for this. They had built their entire defensive strategy around the assumption that someday, someone would be foolish enough to invade with overwhelming numbers. "Break off the attack," Kresh ordered. "All ships retreat to the boundary. We need to regroup and, sir, the gravitational anomalies are preventing FTL jumps. We can't retreat." Kresh stared at the display. They were trapped. The humans had seeded this entire region with devices that prevented faster-than-light travel. The fleet was stuck here, unable to escape, while the human defenses tore them apart piece by piece. "Then we push forward," Kresh decided. "If we can't retreat, we advance. Target the human homeworld. If we can threaten Earth, they'll have to negotiate. Sir, we don't know where Earth is. It's not in any of our databases." Of course it wasn't. The humans had been careful to keep their homeworld's location secret. Kresh realized with growing dread that the humans had thought of everything. They had prepared for every contingency, planned for every possible attack. This wasn't just defense. This was a carefully designed killing field, and he had led his entire fleet directly into it. The battle continued for 6 more hours. The combined fleet fought bravely, destroying hundreds of human platforms and dozens of their ships. But for every human installation destroyed, 3 more appeared. For every human ship killed, 5 more attacked. The defenders fought with a coordination and efficiency that spoke of centuries of planning. Worse, the humans escalated. They began using weapons the galactic powers had only theorized about. Antimatter warheads that annihilated entire ship formations. Directed energy beams that could slice through multiple vessels in one shot. Exotic weapons that seemed to violate known physics, creating spatial distortions that crushed ships like tin cans. By the time the fighting paused, the combined fleet had been reduced to less than half its original strength. 3,000 ships destroyed, millions dead, and the humans showed no signs of running out of weapons or ammunition. That's when the transmission came. It appeared simultaneously on every surviving ship, broadcast on all frequencies impossible to block. A human face appeared on the screens, male this time, older, with gray hair and cold eyes. "I am General Zhao, commander of Earth's Defense Forces," he said, speaking in multiple languages simultaneously so every species could understand. "Your invasion has failed. You came to our territory with overwhelming force, seeking to conquer or destroy us. Instead, you have learned what happens when you threaten humanity." Kresh wanted to respond, to negotiate, but his communication systems were locked. He could only listen. "We did not want this war," General Zhao continued. "We gave you warnings. We offered you the chance to leave us alone. You ignored those chances. You believed your numbers would guarantee victory. You were wrong." The general's expression hardened. For centuries, we prepared for this moment. We built defenses. We developed weapons. We studied your tactics and found your weaknesses. We did this because we learned what your empires do to species that cannot defend themselves. We refuse to be victims. Now you face a choice, Zhao said. You can continue fighting. Your remaining ships will be destroyed, and your crews will die, or you can listen to our terms. 1 minute to decide. Kresh looked at his tactical display. His fleet was scattered, damaged, demoralized. The humans were still strong. Their defenses barely dented despite the massive battle. He knew what his superiors would want him to do. Keep fighting, never surrender. Die with honor rather than accept defeat. But Kresh also knew that dying here wouldn't save the Dominion. It would just mean the loss of 3,000 more ships and millions more lives. Someone needed to survive to warn the homeworlds about what they were really facing. We'll listen, Kresh transmitted, his voice bitter with defeat. General Zhao nodded. Smart choice. Here are our terms. Your surviving ships will be allowed to leave human space. But before you go, you will witness what happens if you ever return. We are about to demonstrate something we hoped we would never need to use. Watch carefully, remember what you see, and make sure your governments understand the message. The transmission ended. Kresh looked at his sensor operator. What's happening? Sir, I'm detecting power surges across the entire human defensive network. They're charging something. Energy levels are off the scale. Whatever they're preparing, it's massive. Kresh watched his displays and wondered what new horror the humans were about to reveal. He had thought the demonstration was over. He was wrong. The humans had one more lesson to teach, and he suspected it would be the one that really mattered. Admiral Kresh watched his sensors as energy readings across human space climbed to impossible levels. Every human installation, every platform, every hidden station began channeling power to something. His instruments couldn't identify the targets, but the scale was terrifying. Whatever the humans were preparing, it involved more energy than his entire fleet could generate. Sir, receiving another transmission, his communications officer said. General Zhao's face appeared again on every screen. Behind him, Kresh could see a command center filled with humans working at stations, calm and efficient even after hours of brutal combat. 300 years ago, humanity discovered faster-than-light travel, Zhao began. We were excited. We thought we would find friends among the stars, trading partners, allies, and exploring the universe. We were naive. The general's expression grew darker. Our first scout ships found your empires. The Vakari Dominion, enslaving species that couldn't fight back. The Kryn Empire, conquering worlds for resources. The Zelian Confederation, not quite as brutal but still expanding through force. We saw a galaxy where strength was the only currency that mattered and where newcomers were seen as either threats or prey. We made a decision then, Zhao continued. We would not be prey. We would build our strength in secret, behind a defensive perimeter no one could penetrate. We would study you, learn from you, and prepare for the day you discovered us. We hoped that day would never come. We hoped we could remain isolated until the galactic powers evolved beyond their violent ways. Kresh felt a chill run through him. The humans had been watching for 300 years, learning, planning, building. The Dominion was only 200 years old. The humans had been preparing for this war longer than his entire civilization had existed as a unified power. You forced our hand, Zhao said. Commander Zirek's fleet received a warning. We let him go so he could deliver a message. We hoped you would listen. Instead, you assembled this invasion force. You brought 6,000 ships to destroy us. You believed your numbers made victory inevitable. You were wrong, the general stated flatly. We didn't build defenses just around our territory. Over the past 3 centuries, our scout ships explored the entire galaxy. We cataloged every world, every station, every major installation belonging to your empires, and we placed weapons near all of them. Kresh felt his blood run cold. What? As if answering his question, holographic displays appeared in front of every ship in the fleet. They showed star maps marking the Vakari homeworld, the Kryn capital, the Zelian command stations, and dozens of other critical locations. Near each location, red markers indicated human weapons platforms hidden and waiting. These are automated systems, Zhao explained. They've been in position for decades, some for over a century. They're powered by reactors that can run for millennia. They're programmed with one simple command. If Earth falls, if our civilization is destroyed, they activate. And they don't stop until every major world of every empire that attacked us is reduced to radioactive debris. "You're bluffing," Kresh transmitted, his voice shaking. "You wouldn't destroy entire civilizations." "We wouldn't want to," Zhao agreed. "But we will if forced." "This is what you need to understand about humanity, Admiral. We prepare for the worst-case scenario. We hope for peace but plan for total war. And when we plan for total war, we don't plan to lose. We plan for mutual destruction on a scale that makes victory meaningless." The general leaned forward. "If you destroy Earth, your homeworlds die too. If you attack our colonies, we strike your industrial centers. If you target our people, we target yours. We built a galaxy-wide dead man's switch, Admiral. Not because we're evil or because we want to kill billions of innocent people, but because it's the only way to guarantee our survival against empires that see war as a tool for expansion." Kresh looked at the star maps again. There were hundreds of markers, maybe thousands. The humans had seeded weapons throughout galactic space and no one had noticed. They had been invisible, patient, and thorough. "Now I'll prove we're not bluffing," Zhao said. "Watch your sensors." One of the red markers on the holographic display began flashing. It was near an uninhabited Vakari mining outpost on the edge of Dominion space. Kresh's sensors showed the platform activating, energy signatures spiking. A beam of pure coherent energy lanced out from the platform, traveling at light speed. It struck the mining outpost. The base didn't explode. It simply ceased to exist, vaporized so completely that not even debris remained. The beam continued on, hitting the moon the outpost had been mining, boring through hundreds of kilometers of rock in seconds. "That was one platform," Zhao said calmly. "One weapon. We have thousands of them. Some target military installations. Others target population centers. Some are designed to cause extinction-level events on inhabited worlds. We built them all, positioned them all, and armed them all with one purpose, ensuring that if humanity dies, we don't die alone." Kresh felt sick. The demonstration had been clear. These weren't precision weapons meant for military targets. These were planet killers, civilization enders, and the humans had them everywhere. "Here are our terms," General Zhao stated. "All surviving ships will leave human space immediately. You will establish a permanent exclusion zone around our territory. No ship, probe, or drone crosses the boundary. No attempts at communication. No trade missions. No diplomacy. You stay on your side, we stay on ours. If you agree and honor these terms, the weapons platforms remain dormant. We'll continue monitoring your empires, but we won't interfere with your affairs. We'll remain isolated just as we have been for centuries. But if you cross into human space again, if you attack our ships or colonies, if you even attempt to locate and disarm our platforms, they all activate. Every single one. And your civilizations end." The general's expression softened slightly. "We don't want to kill billions of people, Admiral. We don't want this eternal standoff. But we learned from watching your empires that the only thing that prevents strong powers from crushing weaker ones is the fear of mutual destruction. So we gave you that fear. We gave you a reason to leave us alone that has nothing to do with morality or ethics and everything to do with simple survival. You have 1 hour to evacuate human space," Zhao concluded. "After that, any vessel remaining in our territory will be destroyed and we'll consider it an act of renewed aggression. Choose wisely." The transmission ended. Kresh sat in silence, his mind racing. He looked at his surviving officers, seeing the same shock and fear on their faces. They had come here to conquer a hidden species. Instead, they had discovered that the hidden species had been holding a gun to the galaxy's head for centuries. "Admiral, orders?" his second officer asked quietly. "We leave," Kresh said. "Signal all surviving ships. Retreat immediately. Maximum speed. What about the crews we lost? The ships that were disabled?" Kresh thought about the thousands of Vakari, Kryn, and Zelian crew members floating in damaged ships or taken prisoner. The humans will return them eventually. Or they won't. Either way, we can't save them now. We need survivors to carry this message back home. The fleet began its retreat, limping toward the boundary of human space. The humans didn't attack again. They simply watched, their weapons tracking every ship until it crossed back into normal space. Once the gravitational anomalies cleared, the fleet jumped to faster-than-light speeds, running from the trap they had stumbled into. Kresh spent the journey writing his report. He included everything he had seen. Every weapon demonstrated every word General Zhao had spoken. He recommended immediate compliance with human terms and the establishment of the permanent exclusion zone. He also recommended against any attempt to locate or disarm the human weapons platforms. After seeing what just one could do, he believed the humans when they said attacking the platforms would trigger them all. When the fleet finally reached Dominion space, they found their homeworld in chaos. The civilian government had detected the weapons platforms the moment the humans revealed them. Scientists confirmed they were real, functional, and beyond current technology to safely disarm. The population was terrified. Kresh delivered his report to the High Council. This time they listened. The evidence was undeniable. The humans weren't bluffing. They had prepared for total war and built the weapons to wage it. Within a week, the Vakari Dominion, Kryn Empire, and Zellian Confederation jointly announced the creation of an exclusion zone around human space. No vessel would cross the boundary. No contact would be attempted. The region would be marked as forbidden territory, and violating the exclusion zone would be treated as a capital crime. Commander Zirek watched the announcement from his home. He felt a mix of emotions: relief that his people had survived, sadness for the thousands who had died, and a strange respect for the humans. They had done what seemed impossible. They had forced the entire galaxy to leave them alone, not through diplomacy or appeals to morality, but through the credible threat of mutual destruction. It wasn't a victory anyone wanted to celebrate. The galaxy now lived under the shadow of human weapons that could end civilizations. But it was peace of a sort. A peace enforced by fear, but peace nonetheless. In human space, General Zhao watched the departing fleet on his displays. When the last ship crossed the boundary, he allowed himself a moment of relief. The gamble had worked. Humanity had revealed enough strength to deter future aggression, while keeping their most powerful weapons secret. The platforms were real, but Earth's defensive capability went far beyond even what they had shown. "General, message from the civilian government," an aide said. "They want to know if we're really willing to trigger the platforms if attacked." Zhao considered the question. Would he? Would humanity really destroy billions of innocent lives in revenge for their own destruction? He hoped they would never have to find out. The whole point of the deterrent was that it would never be used. "Tell them the galaxy doesn't need to know the answer to that question," Zhao replied. "As long as they believe we're willing to do it, they'll stay away. That's all that matters." He looked up at the stars visible through the command center's windows. Somewhere out there, civilizations were deciding whether to honor the exclusion zone or test humanity's resolve. Zhao suspected they would honor it, at least for a generation or two. Fear was a powerful motivator. Humanity remained isolated, hidden behind their defensive perimeter, watching the galaxy from the shadows. They had bought themselves time, maybe centuries of peace. Time to grow stronger, to develop new technologies, to prepare for whatever came next. The galaxy had learned a hard lesson. Some species chose isolation not because they were weak, but because they were too dangerous to let loose. And the humans, it turned out, were the most dangerous species of all, not because they were the strongest or the most advanced, but because they were willing to prepare for the absolute worst and follow through with their threats. No ship would cross into human space again. The graveyard was closed, and humanity would make sure it stayed that way.